Best believe I was sweating setting up that display when I was like adjusting my sign, and it literally almost fell on me. People from the public were just wandering in before the show had even opened because the security was just kind of like not doing anything. Hello, good morning, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Britt, and I am a digital illustrator and teeny tiny business owner, currently working on building up my illustration empire and selling a load of cute stuff over on both Etsy and Shopify. So a few weeks ago, I posted a video about my first ever art market. I focused mostly on prep for the market and how I branded myself and my stand for my first ever in-person art market display. And I also did a lot of patting myself on the back for how well prepared I was for my first art market. But I'm here to tell you that that is not the whole story. I decided to actually cut that video into two, and this is the promised second half of that video, where I talk about my experience at the market with a particular focus on the things that I did not do so well and the places where I definitely could have improved, mistakes that I made, in the hopes that somebody else who's in the same position as me can learn from that. Also, I did do a review of the actual market itself, the Backyard Market by Truman Markets, because I thought that would be helpful for anybody else thinking of vending there. This could be the video for you. If you are interested in seeing part one of my video for a bit more context and for more info about how I prepared for this art market, then it will be linked somewhere on the screen, hopefully. But just make sure to come back to this video to see all of the unmentioned mistakes that I made, because there were quite a lot. Anyway, without further ado, let's go on to the actual part two of that video, and I will hand you over to Past Me. See you later. There were definitely some things that I could have improved though, and some of these are venue related, but other ones are just general things about my display and about my art market prep that I would improve going forward. First and foremost, my organization could definitely have improved. I was so flustered for setup and I did not allow myself enough time, which meant that things were just a little crazy on my stall. I was sweating setting up that display, trying to get it all up before customers came in. Like, customers were already coming in and I was still fiddling with that display. You should leave yourself so much time for your first setup, like as much time as you can. If you're anything like me, if you're a faffer, leave yourself time. Check what time the site opens and that you can get in to set up, or even if you can come the day before, that's even better. I mistakenly thought that we could only come in an hour before the event, which was wrong. We could come in 2 hours before, so double check that, because an hour was not enough time, even with a test run. One thing about those grid cubes that a lot of alley artists use, and I was using, they are so useful and I do not regret using them, but they take time to get used to in terms of putting them together. And if you put them together wrong, you basically have to take apart like everything and redo it. So they can cause you stress. Make sure that you attach them really firmly together, like use a little hammer if you need to. There was one time when I was like adjusting my sign and it literally almost fell on me. Like, I was on my own at that point, so it was super risky, but the whole thing almost came tumbling down. So do make sure that those Gridcube displays are sturdy, especially if you're making it quite tall. So don't underestimate the importance of fastenings. I was basically using Velcro and tape for everything, which is fine in a bind, but felt pretty like precarious and slapdash on the whole. For my next event, I ordered some more sturdy fastenings and I put a lot more thought into how I was actually going to attach things to my stand. And that was something that kind of got left behind the first time. I encourage you to definitely look into that and to try and have a few options that you bring with you. Consider your venue. My first art market was in a big drafty warehouse, and bearing in mind it was February, so it was cold. I wore like 10 layers because I did expect it, but it was so much colder than I thought because you're basically just standing still in this warehouse for hours at a time. There was a point on the second day where my neighbor invited me to come over and share their portable heater, and they told me that if I did the market again, I should definitely bring one because that's what all the other regulars do. So I would just say that bearing in mind the temperatures and the conditions that you'll have to deal deal with in like winter and summer seasons is a must to prepare for before an event. Another thing I would say is take some care during your takedown. I was super exhausted and freezing when I was taking down my stall on the Sunday, and I kind of just like threw a lot of stuff into bags and my suitcase. Not only did it leave a big mess for me to untangle when I got home, it also meant that a few things do risk getting damaged. For example, my price signs, I just kind of like took them all down quickly and bung them into a box together, but that meant that when I came to take them out for my next event, there were like sticky tape and Velcro that was stuck from the back of some onto the front of others, and I tried to really carefully pry them apart, but it did damage some of the signs, which means I'll probably end up remaking them. And that could have been avoided if I'd just taken a little more care and had more of a system with my breakdown and had done it in a more controlled and organized way. I think by the end of this market as well, I was really pleased with the smaller signs that I had made myself at home, but some of the larger ones felt kind of awkward to carry because of the size of the foam board, and they weren't super sturdy, which made me want to have larger signs actually made professional for future events or when I can afford it. At a certain scale it works, but once you get larger scale, I mean, at least the way I was making them wasn't the best. So that's something I think I will invest in for a future market. I also just wanted to include kind of a market or a mini market review for anyone else that is London based or just UK based and are thinking of doing the Brick Lane Backyard Market by Truman Markets, because that was actually what the event was. So like I said, the Backyard Market is run by Truman Markets. They have 7 different market locations in the Shoreditch area. They're all kind of around or on Brick Lane, and they span from food markets to vintage clothing to art. This particular part of the market takes place, like I said, in this kind of open warehouse building that is just off of Brick Lane, and it's pretty well signposted, and it's quite close to some of their other markets as well if you're in that area. It was pretty local to me because I live in London, and I'm also very familiar with that area because I used to live really close to Brick Lane. So that's kind of why it appealed to me as a first location. Also, that Brick Lane Market is fairly accessible to new artists. It's like kind of part of their brand, I guess, that they help to encourage new entrepreneurs and new businesses. So it's one of the ones that's easier to get into when you're just starting out. It's also on every single weekend, which means that you're way more likely to get a spot there than, say, a market that only happens like a couple times a year, because there'll be a lot more people that are just trying to get those specific dates. I'll start with the positives of the market, like basically all the stuff that I just listed as a positive for me, because it was local. I was able to drive there in my car and do the setup. I did choose to park there all day, which cost an additional £20, but the car park was just next door, which was really handy for me. The tables themselves are really big, and they also have this like metal frame around them, which gives you extra places to hang some of your products and also like hang signage and attach lights if you have lights. So that is really cool. I would say that the size of the table could be kind of a con if you're just starting out and you don't have a lot of product, because it is quite a lot of space to fill, and you should bear that in mind. So my tablecloth was obviously not covering it as well as it would have a 6-foot table. So I had like a little bit of under the table showing, which I just had to deal with. And I know some people deal with that by bringing a second tablecloth so that they can layer tablecloths if they're in a situation like that. But that's maybe something I will do for future markets. I'm briefly back from the editing room. Another thing that I actually forgot to mention in this video, but after doing a couple more markets, I've realized is actually a huge pro of this venue, is that electricity is included with your table. A lot of venues don't include electricity, or if they do, it's for like a really big fee on top of your table fee, like hundreds of pounds. So I can see how people who need electricity or really benefit from electricity to have their art display and sell their work really like this venue, because that is definitely not common. Clearly this is a venue where the electricity is flowing, so that makes sense why the vendors were able to just bring in their heaters willy-nilly. Also, I think a lot of the vendors had like quite extensive light setups and things that they could use because of that electricity, so that's something worth bearing in mind. Like I said, the people next to me were kind enough to give me shelter in the warmth of their heater when they could see I was freezing, which was really nice. And you know, there's lots of locals there as well, so there are people that swear by this market and really enjoy exhibiting there. I think it's got an existing community, and if you start going to it regularly, you can definitely get into that. So on to the things to maybe be a little bit wary of with this market. I would say it's not the best attended. Considering the location on Britt Lane, which is normally pretty busy, it feels like maybe this market is just like a little bit more out the way, where less people kind of pass by it. They have to actually decide to go into it. And for whatever reason, it just doesn't get as much footfall. It was a really quiet weekend overall. February is kind of off season for art markets, so it's possible that in spring, summer, and at Christmas time, there is a lot more buzz around this place. It's just that a lot of people are not out shopping at markets during the first winter months of the year. The art market season more kicks off in springtime through to Christmas. So that could be part of the reason why the footfall was a bit slower. Also, it wasn't just footfall. I would say that there were actually not that many artists in the warehouse. Like, they could have fit way more exhibitors and it could have been more full, but maybe they just didn't get that many applications, or some people pulled out. So it was kind of quiet in there. Like, there's a few empty tables and like quite a lot of space in the halls. I would say that Sunday was definitely the busier day. So if you were thinking of just doing one day, I would recommend doing Sunday. It definitely felt like there was a bit more energy and footfall on that day. Also, I had loads of friends come by, which was so good. And that was another benefit of posting about your markets and events on social media, just so that people that follow you know you're there before you go, and also while you're there. I think it's really good to put a post out, because that meant that some people that I followed me and like colleagues and friends and things like that came along to the market, and honestly those people carried me. It's like a typical Sunday or Saturday like walk and talk and coffee with your friend and wander through the market kind of vibe there, or tourists that are just, you know, looking to see what's going on Britt Lane, and less people that were like coming to buy. Whereas a lot of my friends and followers that came were looking to buy, so they bought quite a lot. And I think that they are probably responsible for the fact that I actually made a profit from this show. Otherwise, I don't think I would, because it was pretty slow. Just for a bit of context, I recently did a Comic-Con in Bournemouth. That's just a small Comic-Con. And I made like the same amount that I made over the whole weekend at Britt Lane Art Market in just a day. And that was not having any friends come by, not having any people I knew come by. It was all just like new members of the public. I do some fan art, and I do a lot of like cutesy art and products that I think attendees of events like Comic-Con really like. And that's something that I'm going to talk about more in my next video as well. But that audience is not necessarily drawn to somewhere like the Britt Lane Market. There are some people there who really like that stuff, but the percentage of those people is much lower. Another negative, I guess, was that I didn't get to meet the event runners or any release staff that were there. No one came around. I couldn't see anyone there that was working there or working for the event. And there was security on the building, but it was so lax. We didn't have badges or like wristbands or anything. And the second day I was like walking in, and the security guard didn't even look at me. And that meant that like people from the public were just wandering in before the show had even opened, because the security was just kind of like not doing anything. So from that perspective, I'd say it was pretty slack. And it was also kind of off-putting when you were trying to like set up your store and there's people wandering around. That wasn't ideal. The main takeaway for me was that it was a great experience to actually get my art out there, to hear people remarking on my artwork and complimenting it, coming up to talk to me or to buy something from my stand. Like, that experience is invaluable, and for that I'm very grateful that, you know, I was able to have that platform and space with the Britt Lane Market. I do think it's not too expensive as well, so if you want to try it out, if you're just starting out, I definitely recommend it. I probably would do it again, but like I said, I will wait until later in the year, when hopefully it will be, first of all, a bit more busy, and second of all, a bit less cold. So that is everything. I'm really looking forward to sharing more with you. And like I said, I'm looking forward to sharing a video about Bournemouth Comic Con. It might be like a little bit vlog style. We'll see, because I am not very good at vlogging, but I'm trying. And also, what else? I would like to do a video soon, like a shorter video where I'm just actually introducing myself and talking a bit about my journey and how I got here and why I decided to start my own illustration business, because I think that would be a nice thing to just have pinned to my channel. So hopefully within the next month, I will also be posting that. If this was interesting for you, then please feel free to subscribe. I'm also over on Instagram and TikTok as britt.bailey.art. So feel free to follow me over there as well. And if you like the video, then I would love if you like the video. That's all from me for today, and see you next time. Bye.